Well, hello, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday, where I'm bringing you 5 ways or 5 tips to be able to recognize that you and trust that you are enough for your animals. Um, Being important to your animals, we all want to feel needed and acknowledged and loved, and oftentimes animals who are very present in their state of being and engaging in the environment, which includes you, um, is not always about you. That came straight from one of my dog's mouth. It's not all about you. I'm busy. I'm eating a bone, or I'm grooming the cat, or I'm playing right now. And yes, you're important to me, but right now I want you to be present and come play with me. So, being important but not controlling is a very important skill to building right relationship with your horse or your cat or your dog or your bearded dragon or your snake or whatever it is, to practice mindful regard. To be mindful of meeting the animal just like you would another person, in a place of, are you with me? Do we have a conversation? And the key is to not being needy or controlling. Hey, Sherry, because that's a very heavy energy. And animals don't like it when we get too intense and too heavy in our energies, because it's kind of like an instant repellent. And the more, and if you've ever watched a child that desperately wants the dog to come and play, or wants the cat to come and sit on their lap, and it's a needy energy because they want it more than anything, but they're not regarding what the animal wants. They're not asking, would you like to be stroked? Would you like to come and sit on my lap? Would you like to play ball? Maybe it's just too hot. So remember, it's not personal. You are important to your animals. And it's this desire to get what we want that makes us so controlling, because we want what we want when we want it. And I think this is why animals come into our lives with their own soul contracts with us, to teach us the 3 Ps that I go into great detail with inside of the trust process, which is presence, being in the present moment, patience, right? To wait. All good things come to those who wait. And persistence, in that when you're just starting out learning how to do animal communications, or you're just starting to do liberty work with your horse perhaps, and ride bitless or sad bridleless, it takes persistence. Just like rewiring or retraining our brain, it takes at least 40 days, in my opinion, not 30, to put down new neural pathways. So I want to share with you 5 things that the animals have taught me over the years. And I've been pretty much talking to animals my whole life, but professionally for over 20 years, to know that you can be important to your animal without being controlling or needy. You can be important without being dominant or controlling. And I want to break it down a little bit further. So take, for example, a horse, because he's a big, soft-bodied, sensitive prey animal. And say that you want to take your horse that has a halter on with a lead rope back into the stables, or you want to saddle up to go for a ride, but he doesn't want to budge, because in that moment he's found the most juiciest, beautiful, greenest patch of yummy grass, sweet grass to eat, and he'd like to have his fill of it. So instead of yanking your horse, you might want to be mindful of, okay, here we go. Nibble away for another 5 minutes. And then would you be willing to come into the stable with me, or wherever you want to take the horse? So before you even start trying to pull against the animal's will on a collar, on a leash if you've got a dog, or you want to come and get your cat to come and sit on your lap so that you can groom it, or you want to, as I described in that example with the horse, lead your horse on the rope back into the stables, you need to understand, right? This is the mindful regard piece. You need to understand how is my horse or my dog or my cat feeling in this moment. So once we've sort of engaged and remembered our 5 senses, this is where the 6th sense, this multi-sensory feeling of seeing and the clairaudience and the kinesthetic, that felt sense of, well, how is my cat or my dog or my horse feeling right now? And then giving yourself a moment to really be present with the energy of that. That is what interspecies communication is all about. It's about saying, can we have a conversation? Will you meet me there? Make sense? So give me a hell yes if this is making sense and if this is fun for you. Because when you can tap into your animal's emotions, it's going to help you to begin to understand and uncover whether there's some underlying anxiety, or if they're confident and they're with you, or maybe they're afraid of the lead. One of my huskies, Misha, had deep trauma in the association of, if somebody tried to pull her and hook up a lead on, that meant she was going to be beaten. So it took me a long time to get her to be confident, not anxious every time I approached her to go for a lovely walk on the lead. More like a run. I used to have a belt around my waist, and I had my 2 huskies like this and my 1 Pongo Dalmatian in the middle, because he used to weave all over, and the 3 of them pretty much would drag me down the road for a while, and then I'd be the one pulling them up the road on the way home, because they just had so much energy and they were really with me, and they knew we were going to have a great run together. So when you can tune in and quiet your mind and still your breath and really focus on the breath and get into that sort of synchronistic unified breath with your animal, you're going to notice, is my heart beating quicker because I'm anxious, or is this anxiety that I'm picking up from my animal? And some of those signs of anxiety can look very different depending on your animal's dosha type or their predisposition. And if you haven't taken the dosha quiz, please do so over on my website, sarahjanefarrell.com. It's really fun. And the beautiful thing is that when you start to understand how your animal ticks, just like us with personality profiling, although it is very generalized, we all have one dominant characteristic that leads us. So if you go into the doshas and you take it deeper into the 5 elements, you may find that your dog is very earth-based, very kapha, so very grounded, very calm, very slow and deliberate, and very tapped in to you, especially around worry. If your dog is a water dog, there's going to be more anxiety, more fear-based anxiety that comes up. So knowing what your animal's primary dominant characteristic is, and also knowing what yours is, you'll be pretty surprised to see how often the soul contract is just another affirmation that if you are perhaps very airy or very vata like I am, then having a dog that's very kapha, very earth-based, is going to be a beautiful relationship for both of you, because you're both going to learn, you're going to learn to ground and slow down, and your earthy dog might learn to get more active and run more so that they don't tend to get overweight, those kind of kapha service dogs. So I digress a little bit, but just know that, signs of anxiety can look like they're completely checked out. So this is the learned helplessness, where you sort of see them very shut down because they don't want to get it wrong, because they've had an past experience that was painful for them in correcting behavior the old way. Maybe they start grazing very fast, or if it's a dog like my Daisy dog, she still shows a little bit of fear aggression. So she does a lot of licking and the whites of her eyes show. And then if she's really unsettled, she'll start to growl and then she'll bark. So remember, the growl is like, please, please, you're too close, you shouldn't be here. And the bark is the shouting at you to get your attention that this is not a comfortable place for them. So signs of a confident animal would be one that has their eyes on you, that are very aware of what's happening around them. And if they're a horse, they're selecting the best grass by moving leaves with their nose. If they're a dog, their tail is wagging and they're very engaged and they're waiting for your cue. And in all my experiences, many of these animals that are very anxious, which just means that we need to be even more understanding, more compassionate, more patient, and not just think, oh gosh, my horse is ignoring me. I'm not important to my horse. They're just being naughty. Or, oh, my dog is so disobedient because he doesn't come when I'm calling him. So getting into that space of mindful regard is a beautiful place. Hell yes. Thank you, Helena. Nice to see you here. Mindful regard is really, how would you want to be treated? Well, with mindful regard, I'd want to be checking in with my best friend. How are you? How are you feeling? Is there anything that you need? What do I need to give you in order for you to come with me and create a win-win situation? The other thing to look out for is you can ask your animal. So let's stick with the horse example. If your horse is eating and he's not ready to go because he's enjoying the grass, you can ask your horse to lift their head. And you can do that in a number of ways. And how you approach it is going to depend on your horse's confidence or your dog's confidence. If you're wanting to get your halter on your dog and they're kind of pulling and pushing back, or they've got it on, but they're going in circles. And it happens to me often because they get so excited, I can't clip the lead on. Is you ask them, you can tap them. So say the horse example, you can tap your horse on the shoulder with your hand or with the whip handle and just say, excuse me, could you just lift your head up? And just gently ask your horse to lift their head up using the lead rope. And then you can very carefully put your foot underneath your horse's nose, so that you're interrupting the grazing, but you're not kicking it or yanking it. You're doing it in a very kind, honoring way. That, yes, I see you like that grass, but, could you lift your head up? Same with the dog, running around because it's so excited because you want to clip the lead on. You can't get the lead on, and if you feel the frustration rising, go back to your breath, take a step back, ask your dog to sit. And I think that, they're always willing to comply if we ask in a way that's honoring of them. So ask and be patient and also be persistent. If this is new to your animal, it might take a few goes before they get, oh, that's what you want me to do. You can also ask, as I said earlier, you can ask your animal to be with me. Hi, Marriott. Yes, cats. Just ask your cat, can you be with me? And that's asking them to connect heart and heart to heart. Some kind eyes. Cats like ceremony. They like kind eyes. A lot of animals, especially horses, you don't want to be staring them down, which is very intimidating. A lot of sensitive dogs as well, or dogs that have been traumatized, or cats that have been traumatized. It's very confrontational in horse language. That means go away. So if you're holding your horse on a lead rope and you're wanting them to come with you and you're staring them in the eye, it's very anxiety making, if that's a word or English. And it's very confrontational because what your body language is saying and what your eyes are saying are totally different things. So just ask your animal, can you be with me now? And they might say to you, actually, I'm really busy. I was chasing a lizard in the garden if it's a cat. And, I'm really enjoying this. Can I come back and can we have this conversation later? And be willing to comply, be willing to honor their wishes. And if you have a horse or a dog where you've not got it and you've got their head up and you're holding the lead rope close to the halter, and you say to them, could you just be with me for a moment and just hold that for 5 or 10 seconds and say to them, you know what? I don't want anything. I'm not asking anything of you other than to just be with me, be here with me, not separate. And your horse or your dog or your cat might do something like acknowledge you with a lick or a chew or an ear twitch or a slow blink if it's your cat. They might move their mouth around and they might get annoyed with you as well. So every response, just know that you want every response to be welcome because they're expressing how they feel. And that's what you're asking for. There's no point in getting angry or frustrated if you don't like their response because it isn't going to change how they feel. And again, I think it just comes back to mindful regard. And then, of course, the other thing, in closing, I don't want to make this too long today, but if you're enjoying this or you know somebody that might be feeling like they're not important enough to their animals, please like this, share it, comment, ask me some questions because these Facebook Lives wouldn't be fun if I didn't have questions to answer and people to engage with. So thank you for joining me if you're here live. And if you're listening to this on the replay, let me know what you do to show your animals that you're there with them and that you want them to know how much they're loved and how important they are to you, because everything in energy is reciprocity. So remember to think outside of the box. If something that you've been doing hasn't been working, this is the beauty of animal communications, because you can ask them, what's going on with you here? I remember talking to a girl that was very concerned about her horse because he had been deemed dangerous. And when I went to see this horse, he was the most placid, beautiful little pony. And he kept saying to me, there's a stone. And every time she'd sat on the saddle, the stone had been pushing, and horses are so sensitive, the stone had been pushing into his back, and it was very uncomfortable. I mean, imagine you've got a stone in your shoe and you try and walk on it, or a thorn, or anything that's pricking into you. It's very hard to listen when all you can focus on is the pain that the stone or the thorn is causing you. So, everyone was like, oh, it's not the saddle. There's nothing wrong with the saddle. And lo and behold, when they went to check, there was a tiny little stone that was caught in the nummy, in the blanket, underneath the saddle. So your horse, your dog, your cat, your animals are always communicating with you. Even when you think they're ignoring you, they are tuned in. There's always one ear on with a horse. You see your cats, you see your dogs. They're very, very, very connected to you. And if you can just follow those 5 simple steps that I gave you, your animal will be so grateful for what you are sharing with them. And then you can just be grateful for whatever your animal is sharing with you. Active appreciation is how we deepen right relationship. Relationships are tricky, even with the person of the same species. We lose each other in translation and in the words. And animals are much more direct, and they always want to please you. So as you start to feel those shifts, you're going to be able to make some suggestions, but make sure you connect first. Don't try and pull them or yank them or force them to do something that they don't want to do. Ask them first. okay, it'll change everything. And I know it's big, but it's a very important concept that if you're trying to make anybody, I know I can't make my child do anything she doesn't want to do. And I don't want to break her spirit. I want her to have the freedom and the safety to speak her truth and tell me what works and what doesn't work for her. And it's not always easy. But when we become controlling, just like our kids switch off, or just like, confrontation with the boss or a lover switches us off, right? Puts us into that fight, flight, or freeze state. We're not together. We're not having a conversation. And this is where either they become very reactive because they're trying to get away from you because it's not a good space, or they shut themselves down. And we don't want that. So just know I'm here to guide you. I have lots of online study. I have lots of in-person retreats. In fact, I have the last trust process for kind people who love animals. Due to popular requests, I have managed to schedule one more in before I leave South Africa on the 1st and 2nd of December in Johannesburg. So we're going to be out in the field with horses and sheep and buck and goats, and what else have we got there? Dogs, and ducks and swans. So you're going to have this beautiful playground to really practice and hone the basic foundations of mindful regard and trusted mutual cooperation that I teach in the trust process. So if that interests you, I'd love you to come. And if you're not already, please join us over on the Animal Communication Facebook page, where I do these daily Facebook lives as often as I can, and to just support you on your journey into this beautiful, wonderful world of your accessing your true nature, and remembering that you can talk to animals. So just remember also, in closing, I think it's very important to remember that when the animals understand the possible consequences of a certain behavior, and you can direct that to them through interspecies communication by showing them an image of, what would happen if they cross a busy street, and you can send them that information, then they can make very informed decisions. And that way they can still have their needs met in a healthy way. Most humans can't relate to the concept of telepathic communications. And for us to survive, for us to actually create a new earth where we give back to the earth and we start to come into right relationship with nature and all the other species, we need to reconnect in a very sixth sensory felt sense of and repatterning of an expanded sense of reconnection, so that we can care about other beings and what our choices are doing, how they're affecting the earth and the oceans and other species, by being more mindful about what we're pouring down our drains and what we're throwing into landfills, and what products we're buying, right? Or your cosmetics or your creams tested on animals. So let me know if this was helpful, and trust that you are more than enough for your beloved animal companions. They're here to grow and evolve with you, and as much as you have lessons to teach them, they're here to wake us up and bring us back into right relationship with all of life and all of nature. So have a beautiful Wednesday wherever you are. Please like, share, comment, and get your questions in. I'm so grateful that my client asked that question today, where she was feeling very upset because she didn't feel like her horse she was important enough to her horse, and it gave me a beautiful topic to speak to and share with you. So that's it. Have a great day. Bye.